What would you do if the person you trusted most asked you to delay a life-saving surgery for the sake of someone else's plans? Tom's vision blurred as the ambulance sirens wailed, slicing through the quiet Sunday evening. His chest felt like it was being crushed under an invisible weight, each breath a shallow gasp. The pain had come out of nowhere, a sharp stab during dinner that left him doubled over, clutching the edge of the kitchen table. His wife, Sarah, had dialed 911, her voice trembling but steady as she relayed their address. Now, strapped to a gurney, Tom watched the paramedics' faces flicker in the dim light, their urgency a silent confirmation of what he already feared. Something was terribly wrong. In the chaos of the emergency room, the world became a haze of beeping monitors and hurried footsteps. Tom's mind clung to fragment Sarah's hand, squeezing his before they wheeled him away, the doctor's grave tone as he explained the scans. Appendicitis, the doctor said, his words cutting through the fog. It's severe. We need to operate immediately to prevent rupture. Tom nodded, his throat dry, the weight of the moment pressing harder than the pain in his abdomen. He glanced at Sarah, expecting her familiar reassurance, her unwavering presence. But her face was different tonight, distant, conflicted, her eyes darting to her phone. "Tom," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ER. "Can we wait a little? Just a few hours?" He blinked, certain he'd misheard. The pain surged, a fresh wave that made his vision swim, but her words cut deeper. "Wait? Sarah, what are you talking about?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening around her phone. "It's just Mark's flight leaves tonight. He's got that big job interview in London tomorrow, and I promised I'd drive him to the airport. He's been planning this for months. If I don't take him, he'll miss it." Tom's heart thudded, not from the pain, but from the surreal weight of her request. Mark, her younger brother, had always been the golden child of her family, the one whose dreams were prioritized, whose mistakes were excused. Tom had tolerated the late-night calls, the last-minute favors, the way Sarah dropped everything when Mark needed her. But this, asking him to delay surgery, to risk his life, for a flight? "Sarah," he said, his voice hoarse, "the doctor said it could rupture. I could die. I know." She whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "But it's just a few hours. They can stabilize you, right? Mark worked so hard for this. It's his future." The room spun, not from the pain, but from the betrayal. Tom wanted to scream, to shake her, to ask how she could weigh her brother's plans against his life. But the words caught in his throat, choked by years of love, of sacrifice, of promises made in quieter times. He lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles as the nurse adjusted his four. "We'll prep you soon," she said, oblivious to the silent storm brewing between them. Hours earlier, life had been normal. They'd been planning a quiet weekend, maybe a movie night, a rare break from Tom's grueling construction job and Sarah's endless family obligations. Mark had been staying with them for weeks, just until he got back on his feet, though his plans always seemed to shift like sand. Tom had bitten his tongue, knowing how much Mark meant to Sarah. He'd ignored the late-night conversations, the way Sarah lit up when Mark talked about his dreams of working abroad. But now, as the pain clawed at his insides, Tom wondered if he'd been blind to something deeper. A new voice broke his thoughts. "Mr. Davis?" A young woman in scrubs stood at the foot of his bed, her badge reading Dr. Nguyen. She was younger than the first doctor, her eyes sharp but kind. "I'm taking over your case. I've reviewed your scans, and we can't delay. The risk of rupture is too high. We're moving you to surgery now." Sarah's face paled. "Now? But Dr. Nguyen's gaze softened, but her tone was firm. "Mrs. Davis, I understand this is overwhelming, but every minute counts. He needs this surgery immediately." Sarah's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, her expression torn. Tom saw the name flash on the screen. Mark. He felt a pang, not of pain, but of clarity. This wasn't just about a flight. It was about choices, about priorities, about where he stood in the life they'd built together. As they wheeled him toward the operating room, a memory surfaced a moment from years ago when Sarah had been the one in the hospital battling pneumonia. Tom had never left her side, not for work, not for anything. He'd held her hand through every fevered night, whispering promises of forever. Now, as the anesthesia mask loomed, he wondered if those promises had been one-sided. The surgery was a blur, a void of darkness punctuated by faint voices and cold metal. When Tom woke, the pain was duller, a distant ache beneath layers of medication. The room was quiet, the harsh lights dimmed. Sarah sat beside him, her eyes red, her phone nowhere in sight. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I drove Mark to the airport, but I came straight back. I was scared, Tom. I didn't know what to do." He wanted to forgive her, to reach for her hand, but something held him back. The hurt lingered, a wound deeper than the one stitched beneath his hospital gown. "Did he make his flight?" Tom asked, his voice flat. Sarah nodded, tears spilling. "Yes, but I should have stayed. I should have been here." Before he could respond, the door opened, and a stranger walked in, a man in his late 20s, disheveled, carrying a duffel bag. "Tom, Sarah," he said, his voice unsteady. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. It was Mark. Not in London, not chasing his dream job, but here in the hospital room." Tom's confusion mirrored Sarah's wide-eyed shock. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Mark set the bag down, his face etched with guilt. "I couldn't go. Not after what you told me. Sarah, I heard in your voice you were terrified for Tom. I took a cab back from the airport. I told the airline to rebook the interview. I didn't realize how serious this was." Tom stared at Mark, the golden boy who'd always seemed untouchable, now standing vulnerable, his plans upended. It was a twist Tom hadn't seen coming, a crack in the narrative he'd built about Mark's selfishness. For the first time, he saw something human in Hema flicker of accountability, of sacrifice. "I'm glad you're okay," Mark said, his voice low. "I told Sarah I'd be fine, that she should stay with you. I messed up, letting her think my stuff was more important." Sarah sobbed, reaching for Tom's hand. This time, he let her take it, though the warmth felt distant. The room was heavy with unspoken words, with years of choices that had led to this moment. Tom realized the surgery had saved more than his body. It had exposed a truth about his marriage, about Sarah's loyalties, about the fragile balance of love and obligation. As days passed, Tom recovered, his body healing faster than his heart. Sarah stayed by his side, her apologies a constant refrain. Mark visited daily, quieter now, his presence a reminder of the unexpected grace he'd shown. Tom began to see the bigger picture, not just the pain of Sarah's request, but the complexity of her love for both him and her brother. It didn't erase the hurt, but it softened it, like a bruise fading over time. One evening, as they sat in the hospital garden, Sarah spoke. "I was wrong, Tom. I thought I could juggle everything, keep everyone happy. But you're my priority. Always." He looked at her, the woman he'd loved for a decade, and saw both her flaws and her heart. "We'll figure it out," he said, his voice steady but not without effort. "But no more waiting. Not for anyone." She nodded, tears falling, and in that moment, they began to rebuild not just their marriage, but a shared understanding of what it meant to choose each other first. The scars, both physical and emotional, would remain, but so would the lesson. Love, at its core, is about showing up when it matters most.